This old courthouse in Amite, Louisiana looks about the same today as it did in the 1980s when it housed parish government at that time. Of course, a lot has changed around here since then, because you see, before Detroit, before Orange County, before any other local government on the face of the planet had done it, this government, Tangipahoa, USA, declared bankruptcy. The official action in 1989, when the parish council declared bankruptcy, shocked Wall Street, made the front page of the Wall Street Journal, appalled state government. But for local residents, it wasn't any big deal, because you see here, we'd been broke for 7 years, 7 long, miserable years.
This is the 6 p.m. edition of Eyewitness News.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. I'm John Mahaffey.
And I'm Jay Young. Our lead story today, Attorney General William Gus is threatening politicians in Tangipahoa Parish, telling them to learn how to handle their money or he's going to take over. Mike Ross has more on the ultimatum.
The Tangipahoa Parish Police Jury is broke. Most of the parish government's employees have been laid off. The National Guard has been called in to collect garbage. The police jury's money crisis started almost 2 years ago, but the parish government went completely under when the state recently cut off highway maintenance money. The state said Tangipahoa Parish officials used that money illegally. This morning, Tangipahoa Parish asked the State Bond Commission for authority to borrow $500,000 to pay off some debts.
But by gosh, a police jury as big, as fine a parish as Tangipahoa is, sitting in the heart of Louisiana, we cannot afford to have that parish in default.
They have improper.
But Attorney General William Gus accused Tangipahoa's elected leaders of squandering the taxpayers' money.
Their fiscal situation is abominable. They have failed to follow nearly every law and every business judgment dealing with the proper administration of parish government.
Gus says he's investigating possible criminal wrongdoing by parish officials. The Bond Commission turned down the loan request, and some members said they couldn't believe that none of the police jury members even bothered to show up for the hearing. But the police jury did show up for a meeting with the Attorney General this afternoon. Gus said that unless the police jury agrees to hire a state-approved fiscal officer to sort out the parish's money crisis, the state will go to court against the police jury. After the meeting, police jury members said that ultimatum took them completely by surprise. They will decide what to do about it by the end of this week. But in the meantime, the parish government will remain in limbo, and so will vital public services in Tangipahoa Parish. Mike Ross, Channel 2 Eyewitness News.
Since Tangipahoa was created in 1869, the parish was run by what was called the police jury system, under which a board of 10 members could do pretty much whatever they wanted, or more to the point, a majority of that board, 6 members, could decide what to do. They were legislative and administrative, no checks and balances whatsoever. They used to say that a 6-vote majority could make a Monday out of Sunday. It worked okay, perhaps, in the 19th century, but by 1980, it was broke in any sense of the word, except that at that time there was $2 million a year coming in federal and state revenue sharing. That papered over the fiscal problems until 1982, when the new Republican president, Ronald Reagan, put an end to revenue sharing. And at that point, this parish government went kaput.
The old police jury, their way of operation was each police juryman had a crew and a maintenance facility in his individual district, which meant there was 10 shops, 10 groups of employees working in their own district.
And you need to understand that a lot of police juries had a lot of clout, a lot of pull in their districts. That's why they were elected. So, you know, they were able to help people that they wanted and kept getting reelected. And it wasn't that easy just to change. If you had not had the dire straits of the late 80s, we probably still have a police jury system.
They wasn't doing a very good job. I guess probably why 9 of the 10 was replaced. But there was a couple of pretty good police jurymen on there also. I think there was maybe a couple indicted, but overall, even they didn't have the funds.
Today, Tangipahoa is a model parish with great parish roads, a state-of-the-art landfill, subdivision regulations, animal control, and about 1,000 other great things that we could mention. But in the 1980s, the opposite was true. In fact, parish roads were impassable. The grass was 8 feet tall, never cut. Things were so bad This was the only place in America in which intelligent people petitioned their government to turn their paved roads into gravel, because at least gravel roads possibly could be traveled and the paved roads could not. That is how bad it was 30 years ago.
Trash was just piling up, which created a very unsightly and also unsanitary situation. That was just one example. Our roads were not getting addressed, and you could not drive down the roads without hitting potholes. There just were no services being provided, basically because there was no management and there was no money.
It was definitely embarrassing. We couldn't go send out. We didn't have trucks. We had road signs, old used road signs we put in the floorboard so you could get up in the truck to sit. You had to tie the doors with wire so you could get to try to put a piece of pipe in to try to keep the roads open.
The roads were just unimaginable. There's no way to describe them because there's no roads in Tangipahoa Parish today that was anything close, even the ones that hadn't been repaired, anything close to what we went through back then. I'm talking about potholes 3 and 4 foot wide and 2 foot deep, and I'm not exaggerating. The roads, the gravel roads, there wasn't any money to grade the gravel roads. No gravel to put out, no money for gravel. The ditches couldn't be cleaned. I mean, it was a deplorable condition. It was really, people quit buying new cars because they didn't want to tear them up.
When I say potholes, I mean potholes. I'm not talking about the little things you might encounter now where they need a couple of shovels full of cold mix or hot mix or something. I'm talking about holes that would swallow a vehicle.
Your headlights on your vehicle will go under the water 3 times before you ever reach where I live now. Some of the roads off of Highway 16 were so bad, the holes were so bad, the school bus going down the road threw one kid from one side of the bus to the other and fractured ribs on some of the children that was in the bus. You could pick up hubcaps as many as you wanted up and down the road, blowed out tires. It was just terrible. It was dangerous at night because people were zigzagging so bad, you just couldn't ride on the roads. It was deplorable.
People living on a road would band together and raise money to go buy a load of gravel themselves to put gravel on the road so they could get back home.
I had a lot of complaints on Crappenzana Road in my district. And we had one guy working on a Saturday, kind of like emergency calls. And I called him and asked him, could he come to Crappenzana Road with some coal mix in the back of the truck to patch some potholes if I would shovel it in the holes. And we started on the south end of Crappenzana Road on a Saturday. And he drove, and I actually went out there and shoveled coal mix in the hose. And I got in front of the 4th house, and a guy came out to get his mail. And he said, man, I'm sure glad to see you out here. So we done elected this new guy Jenkins. We hadn't seen him since he'd been in office. I didn't say a word, I just kept shoveling.
I got a phone call from a lady in Alabama who wanted to move her business to Ponchatoula. And her exact words were, I want to come visit you. I want you to show me your schools, your churches, and your subdivisions where these people of mine are going to have to relocate to. Well, that sounds good, and when people come into a community, the churches and the schools are number one, and where they're going to live is right there up there with it. I had a problem because Ponchatoula West was just really beginning to grow at that particular time in the early 1990s. My problem was, how was I going to take this lady out to these subdivisions on the roads that we had? And I literally had to go drive all of the roads and try to figure out a route where I could hit the least number of potholes trying to get to these subdivisions. And it was tough. It was very, very tough.
The first step to turn a corner was the passage of a home rule charter, that is a new plan or constitution of government to replace the awful police jury system. Then in 1986, Gordon Burgess was elected parish president, the only one we've ever had. He still serves to this day. But with no money, no resources whatsoever, he was stuck.
Mid-1985, the Help Our Parish people had convinced the police jury that it was time to do something, and the police jury called a special election. And I have that information here that I pulled out of our archives. In January of 1985, the police jury adopted a resolution which actually called for an election, and that was held in March of 1985. And the resolution read, the proposition, shall the Home Rule Charter and Plan of Government for Tangipahoa Parish prepared and submitted by the duly appointed Tangipahoa Parish Charter Commission according to Article 6, Section 5 of the Constitution of Louisiana and other applicable law be adopted, and people had a choice to vote yes or no. That was in March of 1985. I do not have the results of the election, but obviously we all know that it passed, and I don't think it passed, if my memory serves me correctly, by a very large number. I don't recall how many people initially ran for parish president, but I think the case was more like who would really want that job after many years of nothing but negative publicity. Who wants to take something that has nothing and try to build it up?
Well, at first I said, no way, when the HOP group had called. And I met with them and I said, no, thank you. Well, they had the police jury had prolonged the election. It's like another year. Well, by then the oil field was in bad shape. In fact, I had closed my company, and I brought my equipment to the farm, and I put good hay outside, put the equipment inside the barn. I could get more money for the hay than I could the equipment, as it turned out. But anyway, that was when I figured, well, I need a job, so I will run for parish president. And that was in '86.
It was interesting. When Gordon came on board, I think he had the same first reaction that I did, and a lot of people that served on the parish council did. We became parish councilmen, of course, when he was elected. One night we were police jurymen, the next day we were parish councilmen. And he said basically the same thing after looking over everything, what have I got myself into? So Gordon worked very close with us, and I venture to say that probably no other council worked any closer with Gordon Burgess than we did, because when you don't have any money, you seem to pull together a little closer. There's not much to argue about, and you're fighting for your life. And I can remember, and that's one reason I think that Gordon was able to get elected. Everybody that knew Gordon Burgess knew that he had a lot of contacts. He had contacts of people he knew in Washington, D.C., in Baton Rouge. He had been a successful oil person. And he reached out and touched a lot of people. And I remember the first time that we really got some help out of Baton Rouge, he and I rode over there and picked up a check for $100,000 from 60 Rayburn.
I had called 60 Rayburn. I was with the governor's office almost every day with Edwin Edwards, and he was trying to help us as best he could. And at that time had a few dollars that was available. And through the senator and being friends with the governor, we were able to do a few things that we could just make the payroll.
We got 6 months behind on the light bill. And I was chairman of the council at the time, and I met with Buddy Weir and Gordon Burgess, and they said, what are we going to do? And I said, I don't know. I said, we don't have the money. I guess just tell the power company that we don't have the money and let them do what they want to do. We don't have much choice.
And I happened to be in my hotel room one night at 10 o'clock when the news came on. I think this would have been in May or June, but it was in May or June of 1988. And man came on, lights out in Tangipahoa Parish.
And I came to the courthouse the next day, and I saw Sheriff Larison cranking a generator up in the parking lot. And I said, what you doing? He said, well, the lights are out. We got to have some power. So I went up and talked to Gordon and Buddy Weir, and Gordon had actually called the power company and says, look, we don't have the money. I don't want to get in debt any deeper. You're just going to have to turn the lights out.
Well, they had told us that, hey, you got to come with some money. Well, we didn't have it. So the only thing we know to do, I'm going to cut the lights off. And I didn't do that by myself. I had the council supporting me on that. And and it went on about 3 or 4 days. Joetti Angelone was the chief judge, and I told him, I said, Judge, you know we're going to cut the lights out, and it doesn't have any windows in the courtroom. And so he was, anyway, that we had to get all the prisoners, inmates, out of the courtroom and get them back to jail before we could actually pull the switch. But that's what happened.
Back in the 1980s, this ramshackle old building was the headquarters branch of the parish library system. Things were so bad at one point the parish government actually took, admittedly it was illegal, they took the tax receipts that should have gone to the library system, and they took the fire tax money as well, and other monies that should have been earmarked elsewhere. But then the parish government was broke. So the library system sued parish government. Also, the fire departments sued parish government. Even the judges in the judicial district banded together and sued parish government.
The library was suing us. The fire departments were suing us because we had taken their money. The police jury had taken their money and was using the revenue from the library board and from the fire departments to run parish government. And let me tell you, it was not easy to tell the judge or to tell the sheriff or tell the clerk of court or the constable, JPs, all that. Hey, we ain't got any money. You forget it. Don't come here wanting some funds. We don't have it. And that was just, and that's when the litigation started with the lawsuits and all.
Lawsuit itself, remember there was a lawsuit by all the parish agencies against the parish government, the parish council, parish president. That ended in a positive negotiation among everybody to essentially accept a little less than what they were entitled to get us past that fiscal year, okay? And I have to compliment the lawyers that represented those agencies back in the late 80s who did that. I use this phrase, and I'll use it again. We kind of all put our egos in our briefcase, stuck them under the table, and just talked about solving a problem. I think the citizens of Tangipahoa Parish need to be very proud that they had elected officials who hired good lawyers and as a group did what was best for the parish. We needed to keep the assessor's office open. We needed to keep the clerk of court open. We needed to keep the courtrooms open with the judges, and everybody worked to do that. Now, that was a stopgap problem. That just dealt with that fiscal year, and this was a recurring problem, and that's when the issue of filing for bankruptcy came up.
So after all of that, after 7 miserable years, 7 years in which parish government had basically ground to a halt, this little building on Highway 51, which looks exactly the same today as it did back in 1989, is where the parish council met to do something that no government on any level had ever done in the history of the Republic. This is where the parish council voted to declare bankruptcy.
Things was already bad, and it just led up to us having a special meeting at the drainage board, and we all got together. Mr. Burgess came and talked to us and told us that that things are bad and we can't pay our bills and we're going to have to file for bankruptcy. But and it wasn't long after that the phone started ringing from people all over the country saying, hey, you can't do that.
I was there the night that Dickie Patterson walked up to the podium and said, fellas, we are now bankrupt. That's when I looked at Bruno and R.D. Watson. I said, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We're bankrupt. This is a parish government. It can't be. But then we had our meetings with Mr. Burgess, and he told us how it was. He showed us the revenue sharing. We got to see our first budgets, and it was just a utter mess.
Yeah, there's a state law. It's really interesting. Although nobody in the country, no political subdivision, had taken advantage of this Chapter 9. Chapter 9 was a federal law. Somehow, in the wisdom of the legislature years and decades ago in the state of Louisiana, they put a statute on the books that said, should a political subdivision in the state of Louisiana desire to take bankruptcy, you first must get the specific approval of the governor and the attorney general. Nobody ever knew about that statute. I didn't know about that statute until I went back, did my homework, and I said, gosh. So I go to my client and say, okay, we have to get the governor's approval and the AG's approval before we can move forward. So what happened was Tangipahoa Parish voted to authorize the filing of Chapter 9 bankruptcy.
After meeting with parish leaders for nearly an hour, Governor Buddy Roemer says he won't allow the nearly broke parish to declare bankruptcy.
The state cannot and will not accept the option of bankruptcy because of what it does to the state, which is not fair to the other citizens.
The governor maintains that bankruptcy would not only destroy Tangipahoa's credit rating in the bond market, but also cause a ripple effect on the state's credit as well.
What I don't want to do is send up a signal here that the state can bail anybody out. We can't.
The governor has promised to send some of his staff members to the financially stricken parish to help them work out a budget for the remainder of the year. Voters recently turned down a tax increase which would have kept the financially strapped parish afloat. As it stands now, though, there isn't enough money to last the remainder of the year, and the parish could face $1 million deficit next year as well.
We just do not have sufficient revenues to meet the requirements of parish government, the services that we have to give to our people, the services that they demand and expect.
The parish council is scheduled to approve what's called a bare bones budget tomorrow night, which means many parish services are likely to see cutbacks if they continue to exist at all. I'm Marvin McGraw, Channel 2 Eyewitness News Night Desk.
At that time, when we attempted to declare bankruptcy, you would think the world came to an end, because I started getting phone calls from Washington, from New York, Chicago, the school board, the attorney general, the governor said, "You can't do that." I said, "Well, we just did it." "No, you didn't." So we went back and okay, so we didn't.
We had a meeting with Governor Roemer. Gordon Burgess and the council asked me to be the spokesperson for that meeting, and they were all in the room. And Governor Roemer was very clear. Called me by my first name and said, "Dickie, you can't file bankruptcy," and that was kind of the end of that.
And that's when we came up with the idea of the 4-year tax, and with a 75% split to roads and bridges and a 25% split for other courthouse expenses. And Gordon was like me, said, "I never heard of a 4-year tax. You know, we can't hardly bond that or anything." And that's when he said we'd have to pay as you go. And that's where he came up with the idea as a pay as you go plan. And I told him, I said, if we don't put at least 75% into roads and bridges, and we're not going to pass it, because people really don't have an interest in the problems of the courthouse right now, or the judges, or anybody else. They're just interested in getting the roads fixed. So we put that on a ballot, and it passed, and that's really what got us started.
He implemented a pay-as-you-go system that he refused to let the parish get into any more debt than it was already in. He said that if we didn't have the money in the bank, we weren't going to pay for it. We weren't going to establish a particular service. So, I have to credit Gordon Burgess and to some extent the administrator that was appointed, Walter Bass again. He was the one that had set the tenure about making sure that the parish didn't go bankrupt, to make sure that the money was in the bank before a project was completed. And then Gordon stepped in, took over where Walter had established some rules of procedure, and made sure that the parish council understood exactly what they could do and couldn't do.
So what lesson can Detroit, Puerto Rico, Orange County, or any place else take away from the Tangipahoa turnaround? 3 things. Number 1, the solution has to be based on a foundation solid as a rock, like the Home Rule Charter, which cannot be changed without a vote of the people, and the ballot initiative that spelled out every penny of the 1-cent sales tax. Number 2, you need a solution that brings together all the stakeholders, dozens of them, even in some cases, people who had been at each other's throats before. And then number 3, it helps to have a great leader at the helm, like Parish President Gordon Burgess.
Mr. Gordon did an excellent job of directing us on the direction we ought to go in, and he brought in some really good people. He brought in Buddy Weir. He brought in Mr. Levi Mapes, the engineer. So when you surround yourself with good people like that, and he had all of us working together.
Like I say, it's we. You could not do it by yourself. You've got to surround yourself with good people.
And I think we've been very fortunate to do that, having good employees, some dedicated employees. And I recall when they didn't know that they were going to get a paycheck, didn't know that we were going to have enough money to meet the payroll, but they were there. And that means a whole lot, and I've never forgotten that.
But the people were not going to put any more confidence back in a police jury system again. They wanted somebody up there full-time in charge, parish-wide, that they could point to, which became Gordon Burgess. And I don't think that anybody in this parish could have done a better job than Gordon has since he's been up there. It's been some trying times, but he's been very dedicated to it. Did I agree with him all the time? No. But overall, I don't think that anybody could have been found that could have done a better job as parish president than Gordon Burgess did.
I guess it was 20 years ago, 20 plus years. We had an article, and I don't know, I've lost the article. We was in the top 10 counties in the U.S. as the way that we were spending our revenue.
Today, I consider Tangipahoa Parish one of the leading parishes in the state. In fact, a lot of people may not realize it, but we are 11th in size of the 64 parishes. In my business in the clerk's office, the number of voting machines for Tangipahoa Parish, we're 11th in the state. You know, we're up there pretty high. And we have a lot of business in Tangipahoa Parish, and we have a lot of good, positive things that have happened, and a lot of good, positive things that are continuing to happen.